It's Sunday, September 22nd, 2024. Thank you so much for joining me today. I really do appreciate it. Please make sure to like, share, and subscribe. I was going through some news this morning. I'm going to share some articles with all of you. Feel free to comment down below on any of this. Again, please make sure to share these articles with friends, family, all over your social media. A lot is happening, and this means that all of us must not get complacent. We've got to continue to be preparing. We're going to be seeing, I think, a lot of events as the year winds down and as we go into 2025. We're going to continue to see some major events take place socially and economically. Blackwater founder lauds magnificent pager operation, but warns that China could similarly disrupt the United States. So we've all seen over the past week the exploding pagers, the exploding walkie-talkies. This killed about 37 people, wounded about 3,000 in Lebanon and Syria. So this was big news all week, and this technology that Israel had to do this that basically made these devices become explosives. And we've got to realize, just like Eric Prince, the ex-founder of Blackwater, was talking about here on Fox News, we're vulnerable. We're vulnerable to the country that literally manufactures everything, integrated circuits, to the guts of many of our appliances and pharmaceuticals. Think about how vulnerable we are to a country like China that literally manufactures everything. And we import 80–90% of our pharmaceuticals from China. I hope everybody watching this video realizes how vulnerable we are, that China, one country, manufactures between 80 and 90% of our pharmaceuticals. Look at the electronic devices that they manufacture. And we just watched this technology that Israel used, making these devices, pagers and walkie-talkies, turn them into explosives. What do you think China could do? The amount of technology that China has, on top of it, China manufactures all this stuff. You think about all the appliances, think about the phones, think about the computers, all this stuff that China manufactures that we use on a daily basis. Could this be used against us? Could this all be weaponized? I think Eric Prince makes a great point here. In fact, I was thinking about this myself last week. Couldn't China use this against us? I'm sure they could. So think about when, all these devices, it could be a refrigerator, a microwave, a cell phone, a computer, all this stuff that is made in China. Could it be weaponized? Is it weaponized right now? How vulnerable are we? And do they even have to go to that extent? Because they could just cut off the pharmaceuticals. Imagine, as Eric Prince says here in the article, what they could do to painkillers or basic antibiotics. Maybe they cut us off. Maybe they do something else to it. Maybe they weaponize these pharmaceuticals. But it's really something that we all have to think about, because we just saw what just happened just this past week in Lebanon and Syria as these devices were weaponized. Billionaire Ray Dalio says 35 trillion, 327 billion, 646 million, 622,839 US dollars. National debt will not reverse. Here's the outlook. The debt will continue to grow no matter who wins the election, he says. Who out there agrees? I do agree with that, because neither one of these candidates is talking about cutting down spending. Nobody's talking about the debt. Nobody's talking about the interest on the debt. Nobody's talking about what they're going to do to shrink the debt. The debt will be ignored while the government uses inflationary policies to reduce the real burden of debt, Dalia says. We have an enormous amount of debt, and it's going to keep increasing, and one man's debt is another man's liabilities. Nobody's going to deal with the debt policy that's going to end up being monetized down the path. I think Ray Dalio is 100% spot on here. Smart guy, historian, multi-billionaire. I don't agree with everything Ray Dalio says, but I agree with quite a bit. And I think he's spot on here. And if we continue this path that we're on, there's going to be a lot more poor people in this country, and I hope everybody out there is waking up and realizing what is going on. You've got to do something, even if it's a little. You got to do something to prepare for this. Too many people just go, well, I'll just deal with it when it gets here. It's in God's hands. There's nothing I can do about it. If that's your strategy, you are going to lose, and you're going to lose badly. USA Watchdog, massive unrest in 2024, no matter who wins. Bill Holter. We had the privilege talking to Mr. Holter back last September, I believe it was. Another smart guy here. He said that 50 basis point rate cut by the Fed shows something is very wrong with the economy. And I think, again, this is another great point, another smart gentleman here. And I think many of you realize this too. Why did they go 50? Why didn't they just go 25? Why are they cutting to begin with? They should be raising rates, not cutting rates. But they cut a whole 50. Something's up. He went on to say Warren Buffett's selling millions of shares of Bank of America stock. Something is going on. Inflation has surged. Bankruptcies have surged. The world is wrestling with unpayable debt everywhere, Bill Holter says. Who could argue with that? The people out there who are maybe not as educated as they think they are with what's happening in the economy. Maybe they don't go to the grocery store. Maybe they don't go to the gas pump. Maybe they don't have bills. Maybe they don't have car payments or insurance payments. Maybe they don't read a whole lot. But if you're following this stuff somewhat closely, you realize we're in very, very big trouble. Bill Holter went on to say, keep your eyes on the bricks. Holter contends we're going to see a massive credit crisis. So you've got to be watching what's happening with the BRIC nations. They're trying to dump the dollar. We are going to see a massive credit crisis here. He's making great points. If credit breaks and confidence breaks, the stores that we shop at every day, they're going to be wiped out. Not in 3 days, not in 2 days, immediately, and they will not be restocked. You have to realize that. And again, these people, I'm going to leave it in God's hands. God gave you a brain. He gave you a conscience. He gave you free will. You better be paying attention to the signs, ladies and gentlemen. You better be paying attention and connecting the dots of what's going on, because God's not going to just like fall out of the clouds here and help you out. He's warning you right now to pay attention to what is going on and to be preparing to the best that you can. Bill goes on to say that every day you wake up, you are only 72 hours away from a Mad Max world. Unrest is going to happen no matter who is elected. So we have to realize that, whether it's Harris or Mr. T, whoever's elected, there's going to be trouble. And there's going to be unrest. And to what extent, nobody really knows. But if you think that because one person or the other is elected that all of our problems are going to go away and things are going to simmer down, I think you're sadly mistaken. I think you're drinking the Kool-Aid. Again, we are very, very close to a Mad Max scenario, 72 hours away from a Mad Max world, ladies and gentlemen. And I agree 100% with Bill Holter here. But think about the stores being wiped out within hours. And they're not coming back with food and supplies. You are on your own. You've got to realize that if something happens tomorrow, all you have tomorrow is what you wake up with. That's it. What you can physically get to, what you can physically touch, that's it. Your computer may not work. The ATMs may not work. The banks may be closed down. The stores are going to close down because it's going to be too dangerous. All you have, all the food you have is what you can get to. All the money you have is what you can get to. Not on a computer screen, not at an ATM. What you can physically get to within your reach. That's it. Security, forget about it. You are the security detail. There are no police coming to save you. They will be home with their own families. You are on your own. Here's one from the Hedge today. The biggest wild card in the presidential election. Just days left until a crippling port strikes paralyzes the East Coast. There's a lot of talk, a lot of reports that we're going to see a strike at the ports here in the Gulf Coast and East Coast. And what's interesting and what a lot of people don't realize is it says here a 2-week strike could disrupt supply chains until 2025. A 1-day strike takes 6 days to recover. Think about that. 1 day equals 6 days to recover. Also, Asia and U.S. freight rates could leap $20,000. I thought inflation was going away. This is how quickly inflation can stir itself right back up. And inflation isn't going away. Inflation has slowed down, but it has not gone away. And because of this 50 basis point cut, we're going to see more inflation. And now there's a huge likelihood we're going to see a major strike here. And this means prices of products going up. That means more inflation. Boeing starts furloughing tens of thousands of employees amid machinist strike. It's going to be a bad Christmas for these people. They're going to be furloughed. That means they're not getting paid. Tens of thousands, roughly about 30,000 people, they're saying, will be furloughed. It's a lot of people. And this is all happening not too far away from Christmas. But I think you're going to see major layoffs at Boeing. The car manufacturers, the retailers, the restaurants, hospitality. You're going to see a lot of layoffs coming. And I think really we're going to see, as we head into the fall, into the winter, we're going to see an eruption of layoffs. 2025 is going to be an absolutely horrible year. If you have a job, ladies and gentlemen, do what you need to do to keep it. Do not lose your job. And make sure you're putting reserves away in case you or a spouse loses a job, that you have at least 6 months of reserves. Enrique is always on the show saying you need 18 months. 18 months. If you can do 18 months, do 18 months. The more reserves you have to fall back on, the better off you're going to be. Now, shifting gears here a little bit. Let's talk about what's happening here in the United States socially. Chicago gangbangers rage against newly arrived Venezuelan migrants as Trende Araguay moves in. I hope I'm pronouncing that right. That's the Venezuelan gang. Tyrone Muhammad served 20 years in prison. He got out of state prison, came back to his home, south side of Chicago, and he said it looked a lot different. Was not the same place. Venezuelan gangs are flooding, he says, the shelters and taking over apartment buildings in Chicago. The community is outraged at seeing the government money going to non-citizens. People finally waking up and getting it because now it's happening to them. When it happens to you, then you seem to get it. When everything is great, there's no recession, there's no depression because it's not affecting you. But now it's affecting the average person. It's affecting communities in the city, and they don't like it, and they shouldn't like it. This is completely wrong. He said that when the black gangs get fed up with the criminal activities of these newcomers, Chicago is going to go up in flames. There will be nothing the National Guard or the government can do about it when the bloodshed hits the streets. What do you think about this? My brother was out, I don't know, 6 months ago, and he was already telling me that this was beginning in Chicago. He lives in the Chicago area. And he was already telling me that the gangs were getting really, really fed up with this. The community getting really fed up with this. And I don't blame them. I don't blame them one bit. Why in the world is the system taking care of people who are not from here? And why are they not taking care of the people who are from here? People are getting really upset. And this is going to continue to fester. And it is going to evolve into a very, very bad situation for Chicago and probably other major cities that are going through the same thing, because these communities are sick of it, that even now the gangs are tired of it. And so what do you think? Is there potential for a major eruption in our major cities like Chicago? Are we going to see cities burn? Are we going to see big trouble in the streets of Chicago and other big cities because of this? It's very, very possible. You're bringing in, I mean, we have our own crime here, right? We have plenty of homegrown U.S. crime. Now we're importing crime and gangs from other parts of the world into our cities to compete with our own gangs and our own crime. How do you think that that's going to end, ladies and gentlemen? But it's interesting that they say here, or this gentleman, Mr. Muhammad, says that the National Guard nor the U.S. government is going to be able to put this out. This could get really, really ugly, extremely dangerous, very chaotic. And here we go. It's another Mad Max situation here in America. Do you think, like, could you imagine like 10, 20 years ago, we're sitting here talking about Chicago gangs rising up against these Venezuelan gangs. I mean, this is unbelievable what is going on. Last article coming from the New York Post. NYPD looking for attacker after 6 are slashed in Brooklyn home this morning. So an 18-year-old man was cut on the hand, a 30-year-old woman slashed in the face, a 16-year-old girl slashed in the arm, a 39-year-old woman cut on the hand, a 29-year-old man, his face was slashed, a 30-year-old man, his neck and wrist were slashed. So this happened in a home. They don't know exactly, we don't know exactly if it was one attacker or 2 attackers. It doesn't specify. But we are seeing so much crime. As I said yesterday, my video yesterday, Newport Beach, there have been so many burglaries in these beautiful multi-million-dollar homes in Newport Beach. The attacks, the lady that lost her life in Fashion Island. This is getting very, very dangerous. Many of you know, last week we had an attempted break-in right here at the house here. 4 houses down, neighbor had an attempted break-in. It's happening everywhere. It's a gated golf community. And so areas that you once thought were very, very safe, like Newport Beach, Laguna Beach, Corona Del Mar, Palm Desert, where I'm at right now, areas that you once thought were very, very safe, you wanted to go walk around, you never thought about crime. When I've been to Fashion Island or South Coast Plaza, I've never thought of crime. When I'd be walking down Laguna Beach, I never thought of crime. When I'd be walking down El Paseo here in Palm Desert, the Rodeo Drive of the desert, I never thought of crime. This stuff is infested with crime now. You have got to be extremely, extremely careful. If you have kids, they should be learning skills. They should be learning how to protect themselves. You should be learning skills. You should have the correct tools to protect yourself at your house and when you're not at the house. But your kids, your family should have skills. If you're putting your kids out there, especially your daughters, without the skills to defend themselves, I think that you're making a huge mistake and you're not really preparing them for the real world. I think you're putting your kids out there unprepared. They can have the best education in the world, but if they don't know how to protect themselves, they're not really prepared for the real world. This is not the 1950s, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to 2024. This is a very, very dangerous place now, and that's the reality of it. No matter if you live in Beverly Hills, Corona Del Mar, Laguna Beach, Palm Desert, Rancho Mirage, this is the real world. These places are all infested with crime. Excuse me. They're going to continue to get more dangerous because the criminals know that they're going to go to the areas where people have the nice jewelry, the watches, the money, the cars, the assets. And so if you're not prepared to engage with bad people to protect yourself or your family, then you're going to be victimized and you're going to be, unfortunately, a statistic. I'm going to leave it there today. Have a very, very good weekend. Be safe out there. I hope everybody is adding to their preparations. Everybody's adding to their skill sets. And I pray that all of you continue to follow and pay close attention to what is going on. The worst thing we can do now is become complacent and ignore the warning signs. We are getting very, very close to events, plural, multiple events, ladies and gentlemen, that we're going to see here in our lifetime. And I think that we've begun to see this year's been quite an interesting year with what's happened to Mr. T, the wars, the volatility in the stock market, gold at all-time highs, massive bankruptcies, a plunging economy, a booming stock market. It is no doubt been a letdown for sure. It's been a real roller coaster ride of a year, and we still got a ways to go. Now, what happens in 2025? Whew, man, it's anybody's guess. We're going to find out who the next president's going to be, and that's going to it's going to tell us a few things. And if you think, again, because one person, Harris or Mr. T, that one of these people is going to turn this all around quickly, you're sadly mistaken. I think that we're going to see, as Bill Holter said, we're going to see serious unrest in this country. Political, social, and financial, and spiritual. So be prepared. I don't want to rant here. Have a good weekend. Be safe. Be walking close to God. Pray for this country. Talk to all of you very, very soon. Take care.